Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the IEEE CEDA Bangalore Chapter, I would like to welcome you to the episode 2 of our Quantum Career session. So, we created this session for a specific reason. The industry is changing faster than ever, and we believe it's time we move beyond traditional career advice. But we want to foster a space where we discuss not just the technology we build, but the systematic approach required to sustain a lifelong career in this field. So for today's theme, navigating market volatility, we are incredibly grateful to have our podcast speaker, Ms. Anwesha Mukherjee, with us. We are glad you be a part of this dialogue. With that, I'll hand it to our moderator, Apratim, to kick off the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Vamsi, for the welcome address. A career is not merely a path you follow, it's a system you design. Welcome to the episode 2 of our series. Our guest today is Miss Anwesha Mukherjee, with an elite background from BITS Pilani and IIM Indore, where she was nationally recognized by Inside IIM as one of the top 50 most employable graduates in India. She spent years inside the core of global finance at Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse. Today, at Termgrid, she brings that extensive expertise to capital strategy and complex financial systems. We invited Anwesha today because she possesses a remarkable talent for decoding complex markets. Our goal is to learn how to navigate today's rapidly shifting technological and economic landscape with clarity and precision. Anwesha, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Apratim, for that intro, and thank you for having me on the podcast. Really excited to speak with everyone here.
We are excited to have you. Let's take it all the way back to where it started for you. Taking you back to your academic days at BITS Pilani and IIM Indore, what stands out as a defining experience from that period? And how did those formative years shape your approach to complex problem solving?
So that's a great question. And for me, so there have been quite a few experiences during my academics at BITS as well as at IIM. But one thing I think that really stands out for me and that shaped my career trajectory would be this one course I took when I was at BITS in my undergrad. So I came from a science background. I had physics, chemistry, maths. I planned on doing engineering and then doing a job in core or software. That was the career path that a lot of us end up taking. But then in BITS, I had this course, I think it was called Intro to Microeconomics. So with that course, I realized that I actually prefer economics, and then subsequently I moved to finance from that. So that was a very formatic and I would say professionally a life-changing experience for me, because that's what helped me enter into the finance domain versus being like a core engineer. And because I think a lot of times what we don't realize when we are younger, and I at least did not, is that you really need to like what you do. And people keep on saying passion and everything, and sometimes it seems a bit vague, but you do need to have some liking and genuine interest in what you do, which is what I found when I was doing economics and finance, and that's where my career has progressed. And that's not to say that my engineering degree did not help me, now that I am back in a role which is sort of an intersection of technology and finance. So currently I work with Termgrid, which is a SaaS tech platform that builds products for the finance industry. So coming back to quasi tech role, my experiences at BITS as an engineer and some of the learnings have definitely helping me now and have helped me throughout my career. But being within core finance throughout my career, that's been my passion, and that's because of that one course I ended up taking. So I think what I learned from this is when we go out into the world, so to speak, early in our careers, in our jobs or the degrees that we are doing, we should keep an open mind. We should try a bunch of different things. The older we get, the risk of experimenting becomes higher because you have more to lose. And I think people learn faster when they're younger. So rather than having a very set career path in your mind as a young person, you should take up whatever opportunity comes to you. And that's especially true in today's world with all the AI and the technological shifts. We don't know what careers will look 10 years down the line. So The more experiences you can gather, the more likely you'll find something that you really enjoy doing. And in the process, you'll learn a lot of other things which will always help you in your career as you go forward.
That's absolutely amazing to hear, and I think as you mentioned, and I in our first episode also, Narayan mentioned that he's from Wits also, and it's actually a melting pot of ideas, and
Yeah.
people go and explore and learn a lot of things. I think I can totally resonate with what you're saying. That foundation sets you well, moving from academia to the heavy hitters to the of the global finance. Having spent years within the financial institution like Goldman Sachs and others, you have witnessed how large organizations navigate massive systemic shifts. How does the finance sector process significant technological and market disruption without losing its footing?
So I think there's quite a few aspects to this, but one thing that stands out to me at GS, as although that's a bigger organization, plus at my current role, Termgrid, which is a smaller organization, but one thing that stands out to me and which I think is crucial to the success of any organization is listening to a variety of opinions. So now this can be you have some ideas from a junior just because that person is a new employee or has been from a different professional background, they are switching careers. That doesn't mean that we should not value their opinions more than, I mean, we should not value that doesn't mean we should value their opinions less than someone who's a veteran in that industry. I think the more opinions or the more perspectives you can get while you make a decision, the more likely you are to be at the forefront of any sort of technological and economic changes and be able to leverage on that. So the first step is listening to a diverse set of opinions. I think a lot of these organizations keep on talking about diversity, and a lot of times you don't realize that it's actually important. It's not just an HR checkpoint to take. It actually helps to have diverse opinions when you are sitting in a table trying to make a call about what the next strategic move should look like for a firm. So that's one important thing. And the other thing is once you have a decision or a direction that you are looking at in terms of a firm on how they want to move, execution is obviously very important. There, more than people's opinions, what matters is being systematic and organized. So this I've seen at GS a lot. You have well maintained system in terms of wherever you're trying to make a decision, you'll have a proper analysis, you'll have financial models, you'll have a lot of people looking through the risk and return framework of doing something, so that you don't go into it without a clear cut path. So essentially, in summary, you need to listen to a lot of opinions and see which one is the best path forward. uh, Take into consideration a lot of different perspectives, and then once you decide what is the good way forward, at that point you have to have a very systematic way forward with proper milestones, goals, etc., and you cannot just vaguely go ahead after that.
Yeah, very true. I think flattened hierarchy and
Yeah.
what we call the open door policy, right? This is something that I also have noticed in my career through Intel and Sanders, even in MaxLinear today. And I think that's the DNA of any successful organization. And I believe, and what you have mentioned, right? Execution is the key, right? Like you can have great ideas, but you should have the process in place to get to the execution mode, right? And I think that's crucial for any company's DNA to go through these massive shifts,
Yeah.
right? Now,
No, I definitely agree with the open door policy that you mentioned. I mean, of course, it's not possible for senior leadership to listen to everyone every time,
uh,
but building the culture where people can go up to senior level people and talk to them, that helps in the growth of the organization as well as the people in it. And the more people feel that they have a stake in the organization's growth because their opinions are being heard, the more likely they are to think of the organization's success as their own personal success, and that's when you get the most out of your employees.
yeah, very true. Now, speaking of massive shifts, everyone is trying to figure out the tech side right now. The dialogue surrounding AI and its impact on professional life is ubiquitous. From your perspective as a strategist, how should we conceptualize this transition? Is it a manageable cyclical shift or a fundamental restructuring of the economic environment?
That's the $1 million question today, right? Everybody is discussing that. I think there's a lot of opinions here, and like all of you guys coming from more of a tech background will probably have a more perspective working from within that industry. But looking at it from a strategic lens or working in a startup that's at the intersection of technology and finance, I think it's somewhere in between the two extremes you mentioned. So there are people who think that this will totally overhaul how work is defined or how professions or careers grow. That's probably not true. I mean, AI is, in my opinion, unlikely to take over everything where people don't have jobs or don't have to have jobs. That's not likely. But the other way around, people who are not taking this seriously in terms of, they think that this is a temporary shift and things will go back to the pre AI era at some point. That is also not correct. So I think it lies somewhere in between, wherein AI is here to stay. There's no arguing with that. But it's AI cannot replace all the roles we do. AI is just a tool, similar to, there was a time when computers didn't exist. People were doing calculations manually. So, like from the perspective of the finance industry, we used to have these physical rooms where people used to go in and do calculations manually in a notebook, pen and paper. We do that in Excel now. We also use AI now on top of that to do some of the preliminary research. So that's how it goes. AI is a tool that should enable you, which you should be able to leverage to do your work better. But it should not be such that, you leave out everything and get AI to do everything, because you're not growing that way. You lose your thinking skills that way. So as an example, for instance, so there's this person I know from the financial services industry, works in a big firm. How they decided to leverage AI was, so one of their key work streams daily was looking into a bunch of data like news articles, some internal documents, research, etc., and then create a short summary email and send it out to a broader team. Now, doing this research used to take a whole bunch of time, and irrespective of what other work this person had, they had to spend a significant amount of time on this. They automated this entire using an AI agent. The AI agent knows where to find the data, which websites or which internal folder locations, documents, prepares a summary. This person does a check. So the human in loop is obviously important, and then the mail is sent out. So this freed up this person to do more strategic thinking work. So now they have more time to focus on the financial models they're building, think more deeply about it, rather than doing something that is slightly more manual. But again, the human is still in the loop. So I think that, in my opinion, is a very good example of how AI, at least in my industry, is being used. Of course, there are bigger use cases, strategic use cases, but at an individual level, this is how you leverage AI to make sure that it is an additive to what you're doing. It helps you learn and grow, rather than you try to get it to do everything. It gets it wrong and it probably replaces you as well.
Yeah, I think completely right. AI is kind of an enabler rather than the force itself. And as you mentioned, like that 2 hours mail now can be drafted in 2 minutes. But again, eventually there is a person who is sitting there to verify whether the AI has concluded it right. I think that expertise is needed still there, right? So someone has to make a sense of the data, and AI will take its own course of time to get to there and become that efficient. I think that's very important. Thank you, Anwesha. Now it really forces us to look inward to our professional life from the industry overall perspective, right? In financial management, risk mitigation relies on balance, foresight, and deliberate protection. Yet, individuals often approach their career trajectories with unnecessary volatility. How might professionals apply a more structured, strategic lens to their own skill and development?
So this question reminds me of something one of my old bosses said. So what he said was that everything in life is risk management. So it's not just financial institutions who are doing risk management, that's their core job. But think about any decision we make in life, in our profession, as a senior leadership or as a junior level employee deciding our own career path. It's always optimizing the risk return framework. Like, what is the maximum return you can get with the given level of risk you're willing to undertake? So for institutions, especially big ones, this is a lot more formalized, which is what we were discussing before, like in the one of the previous questions, where you execute, you have proper models, data in place before you execute a particular decision. So I feel a lot of times we don't do that in our professional decisions as an individual. So there's a lot of volatility in the environment anyway, like AI, there's a war that changes your job scenario. Who knows? We can't predict those. But the things that we can predict based on previous data, we should try to quantify it as much as possible before we take a career call. So I personally, like when I was working in my first job at Credit Suisse, I had to decide between continuing in that role and versus going for an MBA at IIM. So it seemed like a very overwhelming decision because I really liked my role, the pay was good, and it looked like there was a decent career progression that was going to happen if I stayed there. And there was no guarantee that after the MBA I would have gotten a similar pay, similar role, because again, you never know, right? How the markets would look like, how the placements would look like. So rather than getting overwhelmed by the decision, what me and I decided to do was I had an actual Excel model. So I had the pros and cons of doing it. Like, what does the career path look like? Like, what would be my pay 5 years down the line if I stay over here? And at like after MBA, like what is, like, say with the 50% probability, what would be my salary or career progression look like? Now again, there's a lot of assumptions to this as well. You can never predict the future, otherwise someone who could predict the future would be like a billionaire, trillionaire, right? That's not possible. But as much as you can organize your thoughts using data before you make a decision, I feel that helps you thrive within whatever volatile framework is going on around you.
I completely agree. I think intuition is important, but it's the data which kinds of give you
Yeah.
that sense, right? That finally it's the data which speaks about
Yeah.
the approach of the thing. And
No, intuition
people,
is definitely important, but you have to quantify your intuition with data,
correct.
and that is how you make the decision.
Exactly. And I think people often say that the greatest risk is not taking the risk at all. I completely agree. It's just that you should also have a quantifiable see to what is the risk return ratio you are looking at.
Yeah.
I think,
No,
I think
exactly.
how, yeah, how
No,
we
even if you
manage. Sorry,
sorry.
please go ahead.
I was saying you might be willing to take a lot of risk. You might
Yeah,
be want to take a risky career decision, but you should know what the level of risk is, what the loss give. We used to call it loss given default. So if the worst case scenario happens, what is the maximum loss, and are you willing to take it? So it should not come as a surprise to you when you're making these decisions.
yeah, definitely. I think how you manage your portfolio, you should manage your career.
Manage, yeah, exactly. That's a very good way of
Yeah,
putting it.
yeah, I think, yeah. Thank you, Anwesha. Yeah, with so much noise out there, it's easy for people to panic. So, amidst pervasive industry commentary and anxiety regarding technological displacement, how do you personally filter out the static to identify genuine structural opportunities?
So this is also ties up with the previous things we discussed, where you are, supposed to listen to a lot of different opinions, do research, create a framework or a model with as much data as you can, and then come at a decision. So it's similar, right? I mean, you have to read a lot, especially when if you're deciding your career, or if you're in a company deciding the company's trajectory, some strategic decisions you have to make. You have to read a lot is basically what it is. You have to look at what's happening on the markets on the daily basis. And for a finance professional, that's their bread and butter. You have to look at the markets and take a buy or sell call, essentially, right? But even for someone who's not in finance, you need to be aware of what's happening across different industries in the broader economy. And I think that's what we do, like you mentioned, look at it as your portfolio. That's how we do it for our personal portfolios also, right? Or at least we should do it if we have the time and bandwidth. So I think the only way to filter out noise is with, the more information you have and the more information you consume, there will be a lot of noise, but you get the acumen of figuring out what is noise and what is actual information that you need to make your decision. And that comes with more and more you read, the more you speak with people to get diverse perspectives. Like, there's a lot of times, and I think once we were speaking about property investment, so that's not related to career obviously, but like I personally have always been interested in was in real estate, but I wasn't aware of the micro markets dynamics that you had mentioned in Bangalore, and I would have never known to look it up if I hadn't spoken to you about it. So that's it. Like, the more perspectives you get, the more ammunition you get, which you can use for your further research, and then you can decide what are the key factors that should go essentially into your financial model for making your career or whatever decision you're trying to make.
Yeah, I think I definitely, and I think one more thing I just want to mention, right? Having diverse perspective and talking to diverse people always helps. And I think today's episode is one of the prime example. I think you are a bits Pilani topper, very much more engineer than us, but at least for me, I'll say. But I think you also have extraordinary understanding of the finance market, and today that we are listening to you gives us this diverse perspective. So thank you, Anwesha. I think these are the kind of places you should listen to, I think. And also, yes, as you mentioned, we discussed about the property of micro markets and all. That gives different perspective, gives understanding of the macroeconomics, microeconomics of different sectors, and that eventually helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we try to do that at Termgrid. I think sometimes large organizations, like I said, successful ones tend to do that, but I think sometimes the larger an organization gets, they fail to do it.
Mm.
But for instance, in Termgrid, we do make it a point that the go-to market or the finance people speak with the engineers, so that we can understand in terms of what is doable, what is realistic, and not noise in terms of how the technology is growing, and they should know what the clients actually, the end users, what they actually want, and that's how the best ideas come.
Yeah, I have gone through some of the videos of Termgrid in YouTube, and those are
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, yeah. So, to wrap things up with a high value takeaway to our listeners, to conclude our conversation, drawing from our extensive professional journey, what is one foundational principle you would offer to professionals seeking build a resilient and enduring career path today?
I think this goes back to the first question. And like I mentioned before, this wasn't something I believed in as a young person. A lot of senior career professionals had told me this, and I used to not take it seriously. But you need to like what you do. If you are working on something, like we spend like what, 8 to 12 hours a day at work for like 40, 50 odd years. That's a significant portion of a person's life. You're spending more time doing your work rather than with your family at different phases in your life. So that cannot be something you totally don't like doing. Now, it's unrealistic to expect whatever job you do, however passionate about it you are, you can't like every day of it, every aspect of it, every little nuance of it. But overall, what you're doing, you should like doing it. Only then, you can be successful at it. Only then you can build a sort of strategic thinking lens. See, like, irrespective of what field you're working on. See, I was working in core finance. Now I've shifted to more of a tech finance role. But a lot of the learnings that happened while I was working in finance is still useful for me, because I like doing that job. I used to think a lot, or strategize a lot internally, even read up a lot. So that builds your strategic muscles as well, which is something is that's useful in whatever career path. Even if you decide to switch careers, that will still help you. But the only way to build that is you should enjoy doing what you do. And that's why, as a young person, you should try taking more risks, because that's when you can, absorb the losses more. So, and that's how you realize what you're passionate about, and then, that's the best career advice. The more you like your job, the easier you can, mold yourself to fit within it, even if the nature of the job keeps on changing due to AI or other shifts economically and technologically.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I think I kind of believe, and I say this a lot, that though we are in big companies, our personal career is like a startup, and just taking a hint from that, if earlier careers, early professional in their career is like a early stage startup, right? So you get to pivot as much as you possible with zero loss, right? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you should figure out the things early in your career, and that helps actually. And yeah, you cannot love everything about day to day job. Something will be boring, something will be
Yeah.
fun, but yeah, eventually you should love it. The whole of it, you should be feeling good about doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Anwesha, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a fascinating conversation, and we are grateful you have shared your perspective and experience with our audience. We hope our listeners leave this episode with greater clarity, confidence, and renewed perspective on designing careers that can thrive through change. Thank you for being with us. I hand it over to Vamsi for moderating the audience question and also for the closing remark. Thank you, Vamsi, and thank you, Anwesha. It's great talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really interesting conversation. And again, I am very happy that, you guys reached out to me and this was great talking to everyone here.
Yeah, pleasure is all ours. Pleasure is all ours.
Yeah, thank you, Anwesha. Thank you, Anwesha. So, actually, we received one question from Mr. Narayan Prasad. So, what safety nets can be created for the workforce today to take significant risks early in their careers?
I think, well, unfortunately, a lot of this ends up being institutional. Not everybody can take the equal amounts of risk, right? It depends a lot on your personal circumstances as well. So, I can't really say that what risk I have taken or I'll be able to take. Everyone can take that. But I think the safety nets, well, for me, if you are able to take risks, again, that depends upon what your risk appetite is, but whatever amount of risk you're able to take, as long as so there might be losses, right? As long as you're able to sort of take that loss given your personal circumstances and not whatever, whatnot, within that framework, you should still try taking some risks. Now, safety nets, that would be more institutional. That's not for any of us to comment on, right? We cannot have like social safety nets in terms of if people lose job, what happens. That's a reality, unfortunately. But within that as well, there is some wiggle room, which whatever wiggle room you have, you should try to utilize that.
Yeah. Thank you, Anwesha. That answers Mr. Narayan's question about. And we have a second
I'll
question
just like
from,
to add one thing to that from my personal
yeah, sure.
experience. So like I mentioned in my first question that I was passionate about economics and subsequently finance, and I had decided that's where my career would go. But as a safety net, I did not stop, totally with my engineering courses. I wanted to make sure that I have at least some skill set in that as well, because for whatever reason, if I cannot make a career in finance, I should at least have that as a backup option. I should at least have a job, and then I can still try to keep pivoting. So I think that's the sort of thing you should keep yourself skilling as much as possible, so that that's the only safety net you can have, right?
Yeah, thank you. We got a thumbs up from Mr. Narayan. So, going to the next question from Dr. Renuka. So, how can students identify opportunities hidden within market challenges instead of viewing volatility as a risk?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How can students identify opportunities hidden within market challenges instead of viewing volatility as a risk?
So I think okay, in finance, volatility, so we have something called volatility trading, okay, which is like, since you mentioned volatility as a risk, so people actually make on volatility. They bet on, the volatility will go up or down and they make money on that. That's a bona fide trading strategies a lot of these institutions have. So I think that's how we need to look at it. Like, what is the most volatile thing about professions right now? I would assume it's AI. Nobody knows what's going to happen because of how AI is changing a lot of careers. But then that's also an opportunity, right? And organizations do that. A lot of big organizations are coming up with proper tech and AI teams to leverage that, to use that volatility to create returns rather than that being a risk that results in losses. So I think for individuals as well, that's the thing. You need to know what's happening around you in markets and upskill accordingly. Again, a lot of it depends upon a lot of our personal circumstances, our interests, etc. But again, within that framework, how much ever you can upskill yourself so that the changes in the market are something that you can actually leverage to get returns rather than getting left behind.
Thank you. And moving to the next question from Mr. Amol. In your experience, where do students struggle the most while transition from learning concept to actually become an industry ready?
Uh, Sorry, again, could you repeat? Your voice is breaking a
Yeah.
bit. Apologies. Could be my network, but yeah.
Okay. In your experience, where do students struggle the most while transitioning from learning concepts to actually becoming an industry ready?
I think in my personal experience, uh, me working as well as now working with a lot of fresh grads right out of college, I think a lot of struggle comes because so when you are studying and learning, the only stakeholder is you, right? If you don't do well, you are the one who doesn't get good grades. But when you are working, people depend on you. So if you don't do your job well, there's other people who would be affected. The company might be affected in some way, irrespective of how big or small your role is. So I think getting that picture is sometimes difficult on a broad level for a lot of people who are shifting from being a student to being a professional, and that takes a bit of time. And I think that's not just on these new professionals, it's also on the leadership or their managers to make sure that they are aware about the big picture of how their output helps the company or the overall team, whatever. Otherwise they don't know what the stakes are, right? And takes a bit of time to build that bird's eye view for a young professional. So I think that comes from both sides for the seniors to sort of make sure that these guys know that what stakes are. They feel involved in the broader vision of the firm or the team.
Yeah, we got a thumbs up again. And I think that's all. We received only three questions. Can I move forward for closing remarks?
Yeah, I think thank you, Anwesha, and thank you, Amog, Renuka ma'am, Narayan for the wonderful questions, and Vamsi for moderating it. Yeah, I think we can close it. Yeah, thank you, Anwesha.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
yeah.
Had a great experience.
Thank you, Anwesha, for such a clear and insightful look at how to navigate market volatility in our careers. It's a rare to get such a practical, strategic perspective on turning uncertainty into an opportunity. And we are truly grateful for your time and expertise today. Just give me a second. As a token of appreciation on behalf of IEEE CEDA Bangalore Chapter, we would like to present a virtual memento to you. And thank you again for joining us and sharing your valuable insights within the community. To our audience, we hope this session has given you more than just a few takeaways. We hope it has changed how you think about building resilience in your own professional journey. So this is just the beginning of our episode 2 Quantum Career Series. We look forward to seeing you at our next session as we continue to explore the architecture of work. So please keep an eye on our website, social media handles, and e-notice from IEEE for updates on upcoming talks and community initiatives. And thank you all joining us this evening. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.